Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Horror Film Where Horror is Forever. But tonight's episode, it's going to be a little bit different, okay? You see, we're not just talking movies. We're going to have a date with the devil tonight. That's right. It's going to
Ooh.
be it's going to be mysterious. It's Halloween night. We're going to talk to the devil. But first, it's going to be a word from our sponsors,
God, I hope not.
which we do not have. Just kidding. Yes, we are talking Late Night with the Devil. This movie just came out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Um, we've really been itching to see this movie. I saw the trailer not too long ago, and I said, "Man, this looks really interesting. This looks like a cool concept." And I sent it. I don't even know if I sent it to you. I just said, "Hey, let's go see this movie." You said, "Okay, let's do it." And yeah, we went and saw it last night. A couple people in the theater. It was a pretty good experience. Before we get into the movie, Jeff, what did you know about it? What were your expectations? What were you thinking going in?
I knew nothing about it. This is the first movie in years, literal years, that I have just not watched a single trailer for, didn't see a single commercial for. Gonna be completely honest, my focus has been all on Godzilla right now. So they picked a terrible time to drop in the movie theaters, but it's all good. Avoided it, after you suggested we go see it, I still avoided the trailers because I wanted to see what it was like. I had gotten this far without seeing the trailer, so I wanted to see how that would affect my first viewing. So when I went in there, man, I had no idea what was coming. All I knew was David Desmalchian, hope that's how you pronounce it. I never know. Was the leading man in this, which he's never the leading man. So I was interested to see that. But other than that, I had a vague idea of the concept and I just kind of went into it blind, man. And I am glad I did because I'm going to be straight up with you. I enjoyed the hell out of this. What about you?
I had a really good time. It's something I've certainly been thinking about, and there's not really a whole lot out there because the movie is, so new. I think people are still kind of thinking about it and thinking of maybe what it might be about, deeper meaning, which obviously there is some stuff we can see on the surface that we'll talk about. But for the most part, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I had a good time with it. It's a lot of fun. It's a period piece. Would you call it? Would you call
All
it
right, a
that?
period piece.
So, but before we even get into this movie, if you've seen any of our long rants about movies, we usually throw in a Family Guy joke or two because we just
Every
love
time.
Family Guy every time. And literally, this movie is the epitome of a Family Guy joke where Peter's at the movies and he's getting ready to, watch a movie. And when you go to the movies and there's all these like opening credits of these studios, and it's like a picture of a house. All of a sudden, it's like house pictures, or it's like a picture of like the grass. It's like Grassy Pictures presents. This movie literally spoofs that joke, where it's like nine or eight different produced by studios, whatever. It's fucking hilarious, dude. I love it.
Dude, it's so funny because once it got past like three logos and it went on to like four logos, we started to make the joke in the theater, like, all right, like doing what Peter did when all the logos were playing. But man, it got to like seven or eight movie logos, and the joke just kept going and kept going. And one of the things that Peter says was like one of the logos that he sees was like a place and date, and then it goes. He's like, "All right, it's a period piece," and then it goes place and date productions, and he's like, "Oh, that seems misleading. That seems intentionally misleading." It's so funny because like we made the joke, and then two more logos later, it said like future productions, and it had like a year on it, and I was like, "All right, a period piece,
Dude.
dude." I straight up. Not only did I bust out in the theater, I think for real, it might be the most logos I've ever seen before a movie in my life.
It has to be because I've seen movies where it's been like a couple. It's like, oh, okay, whatever, and you get the joke because it's funny. But this was literally the joke. I'm telling you, go look up the Family Guy cutaway.
Yes.
Go look it up on YouTube. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then when you see this movie, or if you already have seen it, you're gonna know exactly what we're talking about. It is dead set exactly just like that.
That was funny, man. They go look up the Family Guy bit. You never know when the movie logos are going to end and the movie begins. Look that up. That's so funny, man. We'll never be able to top that with another movie. That was so stupid.
So yeah, it was very funny, very interesting to get started. And going into this movie, I really didn't know a ton other than, what we had. So let's get into it. This movie essentially is a 70s late night show. We have a host, and they really set this up, very quickly. They have like a mini, I'm not going to say a documentary, but just a quick like 5 minute spiel with like a narrator kind of going over the main character, what happens, who he is, what's going on in his life. And essentially what we have is we have this main character. His name's Jack Delroy, and he's a late 70s talk show host. And his show is, it's not terrible, but it's not the best. He's been trying to compete with Johnny Carson for the, everybody that knows who Johnny Carson was. Um, and he's really been trying to compete in the ratings, and things haven't been going well. He's got this thing in his personal life. His wife was diagnosed with lung cancer, even though she's never smoked a day in her life. Um, there's some talks about he's in a secret society like Bohemian Grove, and I was like, oh shit, they're talking about Bohemian Grove. I didn't see that coming. So basically, you get introduced that he's kind of on his last leg at the studio. One more he needs a really good show to kind of bump the ratings up to get re-signed for a new contract so the show doesn't go off the air. And so he decides to have a Halloween show. On 1977, on Halloween night, he was going to do a spooktacular show, and he brings on a couple guests, but the main attraction is really this girl who allegedly is possessed by the devil, and he wants to try to bring that out for the sake of having a good TV rating, a good TV show. And that's pretty much the plot, and then all the other stuff happens. So once you kind of understood that, what was your thought process on the movie? Were you like, did you like where it was headed? What did you think?
Well, right off the bat, it lets you know that this is supposed to be like a found footage, lost recording of a 70s talk show that went wrong. Like what you're about to watch is the never before seen tape of that dreadful Halloween special on the Jack Delroy show that went wrong. Hey, look, one of my favorite subgenres of horror film is found footage.
Right.
When you're talking about lost media, archive footage, never before seen episode where things went wrong, I'm in. I don't even care what the concept is. You got a horror movie like that, I'm in, dude. 100% of the time, I'm here. I'm with it. This movie is structured exactly like an hour and a half Halloween special of a 70s talk show. And what I mean by that is you never miss a minute. It doesn't cut. It's all one sitting. It's all one setting. Yeah, it alternates between official footage and like B-roll behind the scenes. But dude, you actually feel like you're there on the soundstage while this is being recorded. You actually feel like you're there as well as watching it. So the movie never strays from that. They had that concept in mind of like a lost episode that went wrong of a 70s talk show.
Mhm.
They had that concept in mind, and man, not only did they really flesh that out, but they saw it through to the end, man. They had their hearts set on it, and they gave it everything they got to deliver on that concept. Massive points right off the bat for the execution, man. I felt like I was actually watching a 70s talk show. It was made so well. The way people were interacting with each other, the way people would communicate while the cameras were rolling versus when they weren't. The stage manager and the assistants and the maybe the production director and all that, like it felt very real, and it felt like this movie was being made by someone who has actually worked on a Johnny Carson type show. So man, it felt very authentic, very grounded, and their atmosphere and execution, some of the best I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and I agree with you off the bat. A lot of movies, especially for the past couple years, have been trying to get seen or just get their name out there just due off to like nostalgia. Oh, this movie's based in the 80s. We've got 80s and 90s filters in it, and we've got the way that people talk and they speak. And a lot of times it just feels kind of cheap and like, hey, you're just playing it off that decade because nostalgia is such a big thing and people will pay anything to see the 80s or 90s. This movie, they did it in a very they did it in a great way where you're sitting there, you're watching it, and you feel immersed. And you feel like you're actually watching a 70s talk show. Like you mentioned, the presentation style of it. It's like as if you sat down, cut on the TV. Oh, the show's getting ready to start at 10 o'clock tonight. Let's cut on the show. And let's say it lasts an hour. You watch it from 10 to 11 with the we'll be back, with the commercials, the presentation style, the way the audience is, the way the people act on stage, the behind the scenes stuff that we see, it very much feels like you are watching a television show. So the
Mhm.
presentation style that they made in this, they get an A+ for me. I mean, they really did a fantastic job of doing that. Not very many times that I feel like, oh, I mean, I can tell I'm watching a show or a movie being presented. No, I really felt like I was there watching it. And a lot of times people will video or movies and things and music videos, they will present, they try to do like the retro VHS style and you can tell they put a filter on it. It still doesn't look like it did 20, 30 years ago, but this movie for the most part really felt like this is something you found from the 70s. I mean, yeah, you're watching a movie in 2024, but this is about as close as you're going to get to something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what did you think about David Desmalchian's performance? I think I'm gonna say this right now, nailed it. Like I said, one of the hot topics was he's never really a leading man, but dude, it in addition to the setting and atmosphere really owning up to what they are, you could have told me that he was a talk show host in the 70s, and dude, I would have believed you. That's how good he was at that, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had the look, he had the mannerisms, he had the charisma, he had the very, the puns, the very 70s talk show host, even to nowadays, kind of playing to the audience, these kind of quirky one-liners. And I think he did a really good job. I mean, I didn't know who he was until I saw the movie. People are like, "Oh, this is the guy that played the schizophrenic guy in The Dark Knight." I was like, "What? Like, really? No way! I didn't know that." And then I learned he's got a pretty extensive acting career, and this was kind of his first time being the lead man. And I think a lot of people were kind of excited to see what he could do. And I mean, for the most part, I think he did a really good job. I totally believed what I was watching. He played the role very well.
Yeah. Yeah, man. His co-stars too did a pretty damn good job. Carmichael, the guy who played Carmichael, did a very good job of
Mhm.
coming off as this, former magician who loves being a skeptic, and he's snobby and he's got an answer for everything. And everyone here was very what's the term, TV ready, camera ready. Everyone
Mhm.
here was very like everyone here was very ready to be on a talk show, and I think they all kind of owned it. How did you feel about the girl Lily? You know how we feel about child actors. She's a teenager, but how did you feel about her performance as this possessed girl, as this demon? How did you feel about her?
Sure. And just before this will be in the video title, I just want to say we will be talking spoilers in this movie. So
Oh yeah,
if
yeah.
you have not seen it, I'm warning you now. Um, I think she did a pretty good job. I at first I thought it was a bit hokey and weird, but I think that's kind of what she was trying to go for, the kind of Oh yeah, Jack, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Thanks for having us on the show. It felt a little bit weird at first, but I think as the movie went on and as she was on stage, it felt a little bit more natural. And I think she did a pretty good job for the most part. You know, as far as the possession, the devil part, um, I mean, gosh, how many times have we seen movies do this? They didn't really do anything over the top, but they didn't do anything stupid. It just was very basic, which I think is okay. You know, you had the demonic voice and you had the scratches on the face and like the kind of the neck turn, the classic stuff that you see. I mean, it was okay. But for the most part, I mean, I think she did a pretty good job with what she was given. She definitely came off creepy at points where she was just staring at the camera. At first, I kind of found it annoying, but then I was like, man, this girl's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
Yeah, it obvious comparisons can be drawn to The Exorcist. Exorcist came out a year prior to when this movie takes place. How many demonic possession movies of a teenage or young girl have we seen? And they all fit the mold. This one's, like I said, not exactly groundbreaking as far as demonic possession goes, but that's not what it was trying to do. Um, but we talked about the setting. We talked about the actors, man. Let's talk about the actual story. Did it deliver a story that you were expecting? Did it deliver a story that you were interested in? And did it deliver a story that complements well with the type of movie that it was?
Going in, I had no idea what kind of story we were going to get. I knew we were going to get some type of exorcist devil possession. That was a given, but that's really all I knew. Um, the ending of the movie is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, is what I'm still trying to think about because I'm not sure if I like it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, what I'm getting at is a story of a what people will do for money or fame or for attention, which, that's not a new concept. We've seen that a bunch of times. Um, my real question is it more of people like the gimmick of it being a talk show in the 70s and that's enough for them? Or is there enough story behind all that, the smoke and mirrors, to really get behind it? And I think there is. I don't think it's the best story ever, but it's a guy kind of struggling with his life and what happened with his wife and then some behind the scenes stuff and really trying to find the fine line between pushing and staying on top and trying to have a career. I'm very 50-50 on the story. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it's something that I could get behind. It's not super convoluted where it's kind of a mess. It's pretty simple. And I was okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard when you constrain yourself to an hour and a half of public broadcast television. How are you going to deliver a narrative within that?
Right.
You stick so strictly to commercial break schedules and production and live TV production design. You know about that. You're dealing with these type of constraints in order to convey a message within your show. Okay, cool. How are you going to translate that to a motion picture for us, the actual audience? I think I would be more skeptical. I think I would be more skeptical going into it if I had a good understanding that that's what they were trying to do. But it gripped me so well from the first segment before their first commercial break that I was in, and I thought it unfolded very naturally.
Mhm.
In terms of the story behind the scenes, little it's I can't tell if it's complex or simple. Obviously you have this girl who's possessed by this demon. She was rescued from a cult of devil worshippers. She's possessed, but there's some kind of personal connection to Jack that's established as soon as she walks on stage.
Mhm.
So you're trying to figure out why Jack would be connected to this refugee who is possessed by a devil. Um, we got the mention of the Bohemian Grove in the beginning of it, which got me amped up. I love talking
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff, and adding some kind of realism to it. Um, did you have a hard time unfolding the plot? I mean, I would say that I wouldn't say that there's a twist in this movie, but it's a very big theme of don't trust your eyes, or is it real or is it not?
Hmm.
That's the whole reason for Carmichael being there, is to be this skeptic on screen, this stand-in for this audience who didn't believe that she was possessed. But I never for 1 second was skeptical about her being possessed. There was never any doubt in my mind watching this movie that she was possessed. So do you feel like the concept of playing tug of war, is she actually possessed? Is it fake? Is there something going on? Did you ever take the side of the skeptic, or did you think that it was just too obvious that the skeptic was wrong?
I thought 100% she was possessed the whole
Yeah.
time. It wouldn't really have made any sense for her not to be, because I mean it kind of would have just pulled the rug out of underneath everyone if that wasn't the case. I mean, if it just ends up being a hoax, it kind of, I don't know. I always believed that she was possessed. Um, yeah, like you mentioned, it's kind of tough to find a cohesive narrative whenever you've limited yourself to literally, hey, this movie is about what happens on a talk show. Our only setting in the film is a talk show on stage and behind stage. That's it. And there's like three or four, five characters total. So it's very constrained, and a lot of times that can be very helpful. So it the plot itself is fine. It's nothing complex, but it's something that I was, all the other stuff that was happening kind of made up for that, where I was along for the ride, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. The movie it kind of tried to have this like I said, not a who done it, but like a is it true or not
Yeah.
theme going on. And that's introduced as early as the skeptic in the first segment, Christu. He's brought on as like this I can't think of the guy's name, but the guy who goes on TV and like talks to the dead.
Hmm.
Obviously a parody of him, but
Well, his oh, never mind. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were
and
talking about in the movie. Yeah, his name was Christu, the guy that was could talk to
yeah.
the
So
afterlife.
yeah, so he's brought on early on to like introduce this idea of, is it real or is it a hoax? And then the skeptics brought on. So Christu and his shtick, his gimmick, obviously, right off the bat what his shtick is. So it's easy to say that's
Yeah.
that's fake. I don't think that planted the seed that the filmmakers wanted to plant early on, that some of what you see is going to be fake. I don't think there was ever the disbelief in Lily's story. Obviously, because we know it's a motion picture, it's got to turn out some way. But I feel like it just needed a little bit more time in the oven in terms of the screenplay's B plot, which is maybe this is fake, maybe this is a hoax. I feel like they wanted to. What's a good movie where you don't know if it's real or not? Like recently, we watched The Lodge. We reviewed that a couple videos ago, and
Hmm.
that's a movie that better than this one played on the, is it real? Is it a joke? Is
Correct.
it really happening, or is it a hoax? That played on that a little bit well, but I think this movie was more focused on playing on the late night structure, the late night talk show structure. Didn't really flesh out the concept of real or not like it wanted to. But I'm not going to hold it against it because you got to get to the climax eventually, anyways. So, um, the demon obviously has personal connection with Jack. There's the mention of Bohemian Grove in the beginning. You can kind of piece together what happened here, and obviously, with his wife passing away from cancer being such an integral part of his story, and Jack's demeanor about being someone who really wants these ratings, someone who really wants that stroke of good luck on camera, you can kind of tell, like, I see what's happening here.
Hmm.
You did something, and you prayed to the devil at Bohemian Grove or whatever for your ratings, and that's why the devil has found his way onto your show.
Correct.
something like that. So it's pretty easy to find out early on. But I don't know, man. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that really takes away from the story that you could figure it out early.
No, not really. Because it's such a different concept that I'm kind of along for the ride. Anyway, I
Yeah.
haven't really seen a movie like this. I'm not saying there aren't movies like this. I'm sure there are, but this is the first time I've seen one, or maybe in a long time or ever. So the concept was different. The characters were different. I like the setting, and I was pretty much in for it. You know, kind of like you mentioned, we have in the beginning, at the beginning of the show, we have Christu come out and he's kind of, there's someone in the audience, Peterson, and then he's kind of trying to guess and play along with someone in the crowd, and, we got it. I didn't like the one part where Jack goes into the stands to try to interview the guy, and he's like, "Oh, well, I've worked my whole life."
Ah,
He did like
yeah,
the little. I mean, I get it. That's very 70-esque. It's very
yeah.
accurate. But that was kind of funny. And then he does that, and then we have Carmichael come on. He's a skeptic. He's like, "I'll give a $500,000 or $1 million to anyone that can prove me wrong scientifically, why this is possible." And kind of after Chris who does his thing, he kind of has this like he's like he's like having like a seizure, a massive headache, and his eyes start going in the back of his head, and he's like, I'm looking for a mini, and a man wearing a ring that's not married anymore. And automatically, at least in my mind, it's like, oh, he's talking about Jack because he's not
Right.
married anymore, and we saw he's wearing the wedding ring. And so at first he doesn't say anything, and then Christu goes away after Carmichael comes on. They talk a little bit, and um they come back, and then he, they're having this conversation about something, and Christu is like, he's like coughing, and he's having a hard time like getting himself together. And all of a sudden, he starts like puking up this like black
Mm.
liquid, this black mass, and then they take him off, and they cut to commercial. Um, Come to find out, he ends up dying on the way to the hospital. So there's something. I'm assuming the devil possessed him and kind of made his presence known very early on before Lily even got there. Um, yeah, I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what happened. And Christian gets hauled off by the ambulance, but ends up dying. Jack is almost entirely unfazed by that news. Obviously Carmichael's there dismissing it like, oh, he's doing this thing where he can regurgitate on command. Carmichael's got an answer for everything, as a
Correct.
skeptic on a talk show should do. But suddenly Jack's like, I didn't tell you this, but Minnie was my private nickname for my wife, and the wedding ring. And I think he's talking about me. And Carmichael's like, yeah, you coached him before he got on, whatever. But Jack's into it. Jack is very invested in it for personal reasons. And you can see it in his eyes that he really like, maybe he's trying to commune with his wife tonight. You never know.
Hmm.
But he fast forwards and he gets to the part where they bring out Dr. June, I think it was. I don't remember her name. We'll say the doctor. Brings her out and brings out Lily, the 13-year-old girl who's
Hmm.
possessed, with her. And you see some glimpses that Jack he's got some kind of a fling going on with the doctor behind the scenes. They're getting really close and intimate, but Lily comes out, starts being awkward and like, very off-putting. Like, "Hey, Jack, I'm so happy you're here. Do I look pretty, Jack?" And like weird stuff, weird stuff.
Yeah.
And the camera's glitching. There's electrical effects going on. The musical instruments are going haywire sometimes. So there's something going on. So there's never really any doubt that Lily's possessed. Um, but Jack finally, against the doctor's wishes, with the support of the audience, convinces her to kind of try to conjure this demon out of Lily by strapping her into a chair and like doing not hypnosis, but like just guided summoning of this demon out of Lily, which is something that the doctor's done in the past with her, but they wanted to see it on TV. Jack was very adamant about it. He wants it to happen. He wants it to happen for whatever his reasons. And Carmichael's got $500,000 saying that it's not true. So we get to the sequence where the doctor is trying to conjure up this demon out of Lily. And for all intents and purposes, it works. The demon reveals itself. Her facial structure changes her voice changes. She's doing the head movement thing that all possessed girl actors do, and they're talking to Jack. The demon's trying to provoke Jack by talking about his dead wife, talking about his fling with the doctor. That whole sequence where the demon comes alive, how'd you feel during that?
I I thought it was okay. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't really this great. I mean, we do get some pretty wild effects later on, but they played it pretty safe and neutral. You know, she kind of, I mean, I guess I try to describe it as if you're watching it from the perspective of your let's say you were actually at home one day and you watch I'm going to turn on the Jack Delroy show tonight, and you watch this happen. If you watch it from that perspective, yeah, it's pretty damn like wild. But whenever you're kind of sitting there and you're aware that you're watching a movie, it's pretty tame. Nothing too crazy. And that's something I kind of want to mention. And I think you mentioned this after we walked out of the theater. Even though we really like this movie, there's no real points in the movie that are scary.
Yeah.
It's certainly a horror movie and there are horror elements, but there's nothing that really was like, oh man, like, yeah, that kind of got to me, or that was a little freaky. None of that really happened, and I was kind of shocked they didn't really go for anything like that. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there is not a moment in this movie that I would consider scary. It's rated R horror, and yeah, we've got some sequences of gore and blood, and maybe a possessed girl still scares you after all these decades of watching that, but maybe it's because of the structure and the setup that the movie was found footage and this lost archive footage that you don't really feel like you're in the room with them,
Mhm.
that you feel like you're watching it through your box TV. Maybe that's why there's a disconnect between the audience and the demon, that it just feels like it's not a threat. I was never scared at any point in this movie. I never even got the chills. It even when some of the glitching effects happen with the camera and the electricity, which would be like it zooms in on the girl and the camera stutters a little bit. Like, that's cool. I like that. And then at the end of the movie where it cuts to TV static and you can see a face in the static, normally that would get me, at least to some degree, but never in this movie did I feel scared for myself or the audience, or myself or the cast. It was more entertaining than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't say I had the hair on my neck stand up at any point, not even when the demon was talking.
Correct. I agree. Really not any true scary moments, but essentially what we have at this point is we've gone. Let's kind of talk about a little bit of the backstage stuff because I think that plays an important part. When they go to commercial in this movie, they get 2-3 minutes after to kind of freshen up, put some makeup on, light a cigarette, get something to drink, all that stuff. And while this is happening, we go from the beginning where they're kind of like, all right, we need to have a good show. We got to get these ratings. So the producer guy in this movie, he's all like, hey, the one of the executives sitting out front, like, we got to impress this guy. And then as the night goes on, his co-host, is his name Bob? Is that it? I can't remember.
The guy on the camera,
The,
I think his name
the,
is Gus.
Gus, yes, you're
Yeah,
right, Gus. He's kind of like his sidekick. If you ever watch like the Letterman show or something like that, he's kind of got like a guy that stands over there and kind of chimes in every
the
now
guy
and
with the
again.
band who makes the riff jokes. Yeah,
Exactly. So he's got one of those guys, and they're talking, and he's like, "Man, he's like, I'm not really comfortable with this, like the spooky stuff, this demon stuff." He's like, like don't worry about it, like it's just a joke, blah blah blah. And then whenever Christu happens, they go backstage, and um, one of the producers is like, "Hey, I need to tell you something." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Christu's dead." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Holy shit!" And then they go back on and do live TV, and they do it again, and then they come back, and more stuff happens, and then they go to commercial, and they're backstage. You're like, I heard about Chris too. Like people were getting ready to walk off the set. So I'm not trying to brag in any way. Yes, I've seen what it's like to kind of work behind the scenes maybe something
Just
happens
flex on
right
us real
before you.
quick. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Being behind on a commercial break, and you've got stuff going on, and people are like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. Oh, breaking news, this is happening. It can be very chaotic, and a lot of people don't know what to do. I think they did a pretty good job with handling that, and I think it's another aspect of the movie that I kind of enjoyed. The only thing that was strange was that they shot that part in black and white. I don't. I guess that was a creative decision, obviously. Um, I don't know why movies weren't black and white in the 70s. I don't know. It's not a big deal, but
Yeah, I guess, I mean, obviously that was to create the separation for us, the viewers, to separate what was box TV footage and what was behind the scenes. Just like an added effect. Maybe you can make the argument that handheld cameras that were shooting B-roll in that time were cheaped out, went black and white. You can
sure.
make that argument if you want, but it's for us. It's to give our brains a rest, to really emphasize that when the colors are on screen, that's when it's live.
Sure. Yeah. So, we have that happening. The live audience is really invested in the whole thing. And so we have the demon possession when it happens and it takes place. She's able to snap the girl out of it, and she's levitated out of the chair. And you're really supposed to play it off as one of those, oh my God, I can't believe I saw that happen on live TV. And because Jack's like, have you ever in your life seen something like this before happen on live TV? And it obviously no one has. And then the skeptic, Carmichael, is like, I can easily do the same exact thing. And at this point, I'm kind of interested. I'm like, what is this guy gonna do? I feel like he's got something up his sleeve that's gonna like mess with everybody. We get this kind of interesting scene where they reset it, and he grabs Gus as the guest, as his help, and he's like, he hypnotizes him, and we have this sequence where Gus is like really afraid of worms. That's like his biggest fear. And then we have the scene where he hypnotizes him, and we see like worms coming out of his neck, and he's like opening up his body, and worms are like coming out, and he's like, oh my God, I can't control them. And then the people in the crowd are acting crazy. The people on the stage are acting crazy. All of a sudden, he snaps his fingers, and it was like he hypnotized the whole audience. Um, they go back and they watch the tape, and it shows that when that was happening, it really was just him saying, hey, your body's itching, it's getting hot, come to me, like just that kind of thing. And I don't know how I felt about that. What are you? I was kind of confused a little bit. I don't know really how to describe it. There's a lot of things in this movie I don't really know how to describe.
Yeah, so this I think was really like the really expensive like powerhouse sequence of the movie.
Correct.
When Carmichael convinces Gus to tear his body apart and worms are coming out, and you get some really good 70s-esque practical effects, I mean, we love our body horror practical effects with the thing and all that, with the body popping out and an
Yeah.
actual practical worm popping out, and blood and guts, and it was all very real, no CGI. um Maybe a product of the 70s, I don't know, but I love practical effect horror, man. And they did it well here, added to the realism. But that whole sequence goes on, and you notice that everyone in the audience, including Jack, including Lily, everyone is like, everyone's there. It's not a trick. Like,
Yeah.
no one's frozen or anything like that. You could tell they are genuinely reacting to this happening. Come to find out, it's because Carmichael said, pay attention to the spinning hypnosis spiral in his watch, held it up to the camera, so everyone watching the monitors did it. Everyone watching at home was hypnotized, so everyone was hypnotized. And that's this film's fourth wall break meta move of making us feel hypnotized, because Carmichael hypnotized us, we believed it, until you play it back on the cameras and you realize that it was all just narrated. None of that actually ever happened. So really good sequence, really gripping sequence. My favorite moment of the movie, I think.
Mm.
Very entertaining. And I was confused too. I was confused, like, how how did you pull the wool over the eyes of 100 people in that room, including us? So
Right.
I I was interested to see it, and then when it finally explained Carmichael's trick, I finally felt like his skepticism was actually grounded in expertise. So I like that. That was my favorite moment of the movie. And watching that playback on the cameras just really reinforced Carmichael's character instead of just like this Debbie Downer who's just like all talk and got no proof. He brought the proof, man.
Yeah.
So, again, if this movie had put more effort into convincing us, the audience, that it might not be real, I would have believed it more. But I know it was real. I know the demon possession is real. So, well thought out sequence, well written sequence.
Yeah.
Let's cut to the chase though, man. Let's get back to the demon because you ain't fooling me. So Jack obviously gets the idea to watch Lily back on the cameras and see if that was real. And turns out that all that really happened. That wasn't hypnosis. So Carmichael's at a loss for words.
Yeah, pretty much. They go back and play it. He's like, "See, I told you, I proved you wrong." And then she's like, "Well, go back and play the tape where the possession happened." And they do, and it actually happens. No BS. And
No
they're
fooling.
no fooling, man. And it actually happens, and then that's kind of when stuff starts to go haywire, and all of a sudden the lights start, acting crazy, and all the stuff starts happening. And honestly, this is probably my favorite part of the movie. Lily also becomes this like I don't really know how to explain it. Like she like rises from the ground. She's got like lightning bolts like coming out of her arms, and like her head like splits open, and then she's like hitting like people with like lightning bolts. I don't know, man. It's like some wild shit.
Very
It's
70s.
it's that's the thing, is that it looks cheap, but when you think about it, like that's what, if you were trying to pull that effect off in the 70s, that's exactly what it would look like. It would look cheesy and kind of cheap. So it works. And then all of a sudden, she just starts, destroying everybody. Bob, or Gus, sorry, gets his neck turned around and he falls through the table. Dr. June, she gets picked up by her necklace she's been wearing, gets her throat cut, and she falls on the ground. She's dead. And then you got Carmichael, and he's like, take my money, I'm sorry. And then she hits him and he burns to death. The crowd's running around like losing their mind. And Jack is he's kind of like at the back trying to get out, and he finally kind of escapes. And that's when we kind of cut to the ending. The last like 10 minutes, which is completely different really from any part of the entire movie. We kind of get this I'm not gonna call it a flashback. Maybe it is. I don't really know what to call it.
It's a
Uh,
trip.
a trip basically where he goes through these various stages of being on camera and on TV doing, things from the past, and he's like, "Wait, what is happening? This isn't real. Why am I here?" He walks into the Bohemian Grove thing, and the people from the audience are there with him, and the owl was there, and the guy from the cult that rescued where they rescued Lily from was there. He was like, "You need to drink this." Kind of some real trippy stuff. And you're kind of catching on, like, okay, like if you know anything about Bohemian Grove, or like sacrifices, Illuminati, all that type stuff, it's kind of like they're making like a sacrifice, like a deal with the devil. Hey, Jack, if you drink this, we will give you what you want, what you desire, your fame, money, fortune. And that's kind of what happens. And after he does that, we kind of run into the scene where his wife is lying on her deathbed basically, and she, like we mentioned, she died of lung cancer even though she never smoked before. And she basically asks him to pull the plug. She looks terrible, she's in bad shape, and that's he stabs her to kill her. Now, do you think, and I'm assuming this is pretty much what happened, that his wife, maybe he was like, I didn't know it was going to happen like this. I didn't know it was going to happen like this. He essentially sacrificed his wife to get what he wanted in return.
Yeah, yeah, that was the idea, was that he went to Bohemian Grove and his ratings were slipping, so he prayed at the altar, man, and it came with a cost, and that cost wasn't cashed in until later on. and that's why the beginning of the movie sets up this having never smoked a day in her life, she developed lung cancer, so it's the sudden and mysterious way that she came down with this illness. That's what happened. It turns out that he went to Bohemian Grove, did his ritual with his TV elite friends, and got the fame and fortune that he wanted. And then when it was time to cash in on that, it was the sacrifice of his wife, and that's why it was so sudden. And maybe during this night, he was trying to commune with the devil in order to establish some kind of connection or something, or speak to her. But that turns out that's what the whole concept was he sacrificed his wife for the TV fame.
Pretty much. Just like I sacrificed my wife when I made my first album.
Oh yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's just something that you have to do.
Don't
It's
tell
the
her
way it
that,
goes.
but
Yeah, I won't tell her. But yeah, and then we get the sequence where he's got this dagger, and it's shown throughout the movie a couple times. And, he stabs her in the heart or whatever, and then we kind of get this scene where it pulls back, and really he stabbed Lily in the heart, and he's all alone on set, stabbed her in the heart, realizes what he's done, drops the knife, and it kind of the camera zooms out, and you see all the destruction, all the dead people, and all the stuff, and then it goes to end transmission. The show is over. Um, Give me your thoughts on the last 10 minutes, the ending. The whole movie, we are basically stuck in the studio, in the setting. That last 10 minutes, we get something completely different. Do you think they jumped the shark? Do you like what they did? Do you have no idea what you saw? Are you still thinking about it? How do you feel?
it's not the most confusing ending I've ever seen. It As far as jumping the shark, no, I think it's fine for this movie. Obviously, you have the separation of, we talked about the black and white and the box TV cameras for when you're on set. Obviously, it becomes very, very apparent when it goes to a wide 16:9 shot on an 8K camera digitally, that we're out of the late night show now. We're inside the mind of Jack, where we're watching something different, and seeing this sequence unfold, starting to put the pieces together, where it all began, how it turned out the way that it did, Jack tripping through all of these different moments in the show's history. He's like kind of spiraling through it all, kind of having like an out of body, like Doctor Strange moment, going
Mhm.
through all these different moments in time. And you see the hypnosis spiral on the camera from a different episode of the late night show, and he's like, stop, turn off your TVs, turn off your TVs. And then it's pieced together. He did the ritual, sacrificed his wife, the stabbing of his wife to put her out of her misery. Obviously, allegory for he killed his own wife out of his greed. Kind of a flat shocker moment where it turns out that he had stabbed Lily on camera. Um, didn't really do it for me there. Kind of like putting a hat on a hat there, but no, the whole sequence it's by all strange accounts, pretty acceptable. Now, when this was going on, and most importantly, when it switched to the wide shot of the 16:9 with the different style camera, and it started to be like, oh, you're not in the show anymore, like,
Yeah.
and things are happening. There is one thing there is one thing that I immediately was brought into my memory that I have seen before, and it's not a movie, man. It is this old, like 10-year-old series of videos on YouTube from the golden era called "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared," which is this Sesame Street-esque children's puppet show that turns horrifying. And the ending of that show, it's like 5 or 6 episodes. The ending of that run of videos ends almost the exact same way as this movie. So similarly, to a point where I feel like they watched that and then said, "We're doing that." One or two of the shots came straight out of that. First of all, the movie that those videos freaked me out when I was younger. I hadn't thought about those in a good 5, maybe 10 years. Bet your ass I went and watched them again right after this movie. So if any of you have ever seen the videos that went viral years ago called "Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared," I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If you've never seen it, go back and watch it because it's YouTube history at this point. But yeah,
I,
that's that. What's up?
I was gonna say you sent it to me last night. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm gonna check it out. So
Dude, it's driving home. I was like, oh my god, I hadn't thought about that since like high school, man. But yeah, it kept me up at night first time I watched it. But yeah, that's what I thought of. Don't hug me, I'm scared. That's how this movie ended. But now the concept of the sacrifice, the Bohemian Grove, the TV fame. I'm a big conspiracy guy.
yes,
I'm a big Illuminati guy. I'm a big the elites run Hollywood, Bohemian Grove. Dude, you know it, man. I'm all in on that. They this screenplay started to touch on this concept of a late night talk show host
hmm,
who had actually gone through the motions of making a deal with the devil for TV fame, and it played out on screen. Didn't know I wanted this movie to be that, but as soon as you started dangling that carrot in front of me, I immediately was like, oh, I want to go back and watch it all and see how that played out, see some symbolism, see some stuff, Easter
right,
eggs like that. That's not what this movie is. But I feel like the writer's room on this movie had two or three brilliant concepts for a movie, and they thought it was intertwined. They had this idea that they wanted to do the hour and a half sitting of a talk show that went wrong, and everything is condensed within that runtime live, and seeing the behind the scenes of a talk show and the 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 lost footage of this recording. Great concept, A+ concept for real. But then at like the end of that brainstorming session, they were like, oh, what if we did like an Illuminati, like Bohemian Grove ritual where he tried to gain fame in Hollywood? And they were like, yes, yes, another great concept that fits perfectly with our talk show host, but they didn't give it the time to really develop in the plot. Um, and then they also had the great idea of, oh, what if it is real? What if it's not real? Going back and forth, playing with the audience, playing
correct.
tricks on the audience minds. And that's why they did the Carmichael thing. Those last two ideas, great ideas, but you only have 2 hours of runtime. So you can only really develop and realize that first idea, which is an A+ idea of the talk show host setting. But good ideas all around. Be careful though. Be careful you don't start pulling a sinister and throwing more things on at the end and making the pile too big.
Don't
You
do
know,
it.
the straw that broke the camel's back. You got a good movie. Know when to stop. But the movie ends pretty abruptly, and that's it, man. That's Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah. There are, God, there's so many things we didn't mention. I mean, we could go on for another 2 hours, but I really want people to see this movie, and maybe we'll discuss it again. But this is something I don't want to sit here and break down for 2 hours. There's so much, and I've only seen the
I got
movie
to see it
one
again.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I really want to see it again because I feel like there's some stuff that I miss and some things that now that I know how the movie is going to be, I can go and watch it from like a different perspective and really get enjoy it more. So this is certainly a different kind of movie. I'm going to ask you one more question, then we'll
yep.
get to the grading stuff. Now, I didn't know this about this movie because I really didn't know anything about it other than the trailer. So I know you probably didn't either. There was a lot of controversy online about this movie because of the use of AI. Were you aware of that, or
I just learned about 2 hours ago. We saw this movie last night. I just found out about it today. About because I
correct?
went to go look at it, on Reddit and whatnot. And the talking points of this movie is all AI centered. I'm like, what the hell? Elaborate for me a little bit. I got a basic idea of it, but elaborate for me.
So, from what I understand, and I could be wrong on some of this, but so when we'd get to they go to commercial and the screen would pop up and it would say um like Jack Delroy's Halloween, Night Owl's Halloween, and it's like the design, I like the skeletons, and then we've got like the cutaway scene. Yeah, anytime they cut to commercial and it's like we'll be right back, and it's like a Halloween design, like a
Like a
pumpkin.
place card, yeah,
Yeah,
like a
like like
still
like a
image,
like a
yeah,
title card essentially, like with the
yeah.
show's logo and the name and all that stuff. These little designs. Well, apparently they use AI to make those images, and this is maybe 3 or 4 images in the movie that are on for just a few seconds. And I'm coming at this from the perspective of that's all it is. Apparently people were really upset about that. I mean, I'm not going to see this movie. It's got AI in it. They're taking away jobs from humans. How dare they use AI? This is unacceptable. I mean, there are people that were really upset about this, and I got to be honest with you. I, I am very much a person who is. I think AI can be super beneficial, obviously, but I am very much, hey, we need to use this within reason. We don't want to put people out of work whenever we can use AI, even though that will eventually happen. Unfortunately, it will happen. But I feel like that is a major reaction. Uh, I mean, we're talking about a couple images that were in the movie for like maybe 1 minute total, and people are talking about you put a design artist out of a job. I'm like, I I mean, I guess, but I don't know, man. I think people are way overthinking this thing.
You know, I'm gonna draw that picket line, man. I am very adamantly on their side with this one.
Really?
Oh yeah, I am a hard no on AI in movies, man. Absolutely, do not open that Pandora's box, man. I mean, I understand that it's three still images, of a place card. Maybe one of them was like I think probably wrong, but I think one of them was like a Time magazine cover from the
Something.
70s.
Yeah.
They used AI to generate some still images to use in the movie. What you said, it's 1 second of a film that's not integral to the story at all. Who gives a shit, right?
Hmm.
And to that, I say, it's one hit of crystal meth. Who gives a shit, right? It's one hit of heroin. Who gives a shit, right? That's what you have to think about. This is dangerous, dangerous, insanely harmful stuff. This is the beginning of a snowball effect that I said a year ago was about to take off. The writers' strike of the last year, that was a catalyst, man. We're already seeing some of these streaming services use AI and powerful versions of GPT to write screenplays for their episodes, their serial episodes. We're already seeing that. So maybe Late Night with the Devil is not, it's not Titanic. It's not Transformers. It's not the new Star Wars. Maybe it's not this tent pole of American cinema. Maybe it's going to fly under the radar and not be seen by anybody but us.
Hmm.
But as soon as you start making excuses in defense of AI, you start the snowball effect. You start rolling downhill and compounding. Oh, yeah, it's three still images now, but this time next year, it'll be four. By the end of next year, there might. Have you seen the videos that came from the Sora AI, the video generator? There's this all powerful AI video generator right now that can generate these photorealistic sequences of like people talking or animals, things that would fool me if I wasn't looking closely and wasn't familiar enough with AI. Mark my fucking words right now. By the end of next year, we're going to have AI video sequences. It's not just going to be still images and place cards in a 70s ripoff movie. It's not just going to be these indie things making up for budget constraints. It's not going to be that. This is a very dangerous can of worms, and it's a very disrespectful can of worms. I don't think anyone's employment is hinging on the fact that they got to design three place cards in Late Night with the Devil. I don't think you're putting anyone out of a job with the use in this movie. But you will put people out of a job if we keep letting it go under the radar. It's not okay. It will never be okay, but it's about to get a lot worse. Movies 5 years from now Movies in 2030 and beyond are going to be 50% or more AI generated. And that is horrifying to me. The story is going to be AI generated. The visual effects are going to be AI generated. The trailers are going to be AI generated. Dude, we'll get to a point where human beings on screen are AI generated. Next thing you know, you don't even know if you're watching an animated movie or not. And on top of that, hey, if Netflix and Peacock and Paramount Plus want to keep pumping out these cheap movies like that with AI, more power to them, right? No, because you will start putting people out of jobs. You will start putting the Scorseses and the Tarantinos and the Soderberghs out of jobs. You will start putting people like the Chalamets, like the Kate Beckinsales, like the Tom Cruises. You're going to start putting them out of jobs. And you're already teetering on the fence of putting people who you view as insignificant, such as writers, visual effects artists, graphic designers. You're already entertaining the idea of cutting their expenses and relying on this free AI. It's dangerous, it's harmful. Yeah, right now in April 2024, timestamp this, not that big a deal, right? Find me in April 2027 and see how horrendous the movie industry looks. I guarantee you it's going to be a nightmare. So, yeah, I'm right there with them. Fight them on this. It's not okay. It is a bad call. It is a poor taste. If I was making a short film on YouTube, yeah, I might use AI. I'm not a movie director. I'm not Hollywood. I'm not giving people money. So, I don't know.
So what you're saying is Late Night with the Devil gets an F. Throw it in the trash. Garbage. You're done.
Fuck this movie, dude. No, no, I'm not. It's not riot worthy because it is Late Night with the Devil. But make no mistake, big studios like Sony and Warner Brothers and Universal, and especially Disney, are watching the discourse about things like this. They're letting this be the guinea pigs. They're letting these indie flicks be the guinea pigs. They're trying to see what the temperature is and how that affects the box office. So, no, I'm right there with you, man. If you're boycotting this movie because of AI, I'm right there with you, man. For real. I like this movie. I will buy it on Blu-ray. But that AI debate, and we should do a video about this, talking
Sure.
about this in depth. I want to do some more research and find out some more examples other than Late Night with the Devil. But AI is a dangerous Pandora's box, man, and I'm not for it.
I'll keep it short and then we'll go to the grading. I don't disagree with you. In fact, I agree with you 1,000%. I think we're there's no doubt in my mind and in our minds that we are going to get more AI generated movies. We are going to get, I think not long ago there was a maybe later or earlier last year there was a AI a label that signed an AI artist
Yeah.
and they shut it down very quickly. But that stuff is going to happen, and I don't mean that as in, oh, it's going to happen, just let it happen. No, I think we should fight it to the end because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very important part about artistic expression and things being made by humans and being made by people, being personable. You can't get that through that stuff. um I think for the small part of this, I don't to me, it's not really the biggest deal. Because if I was maybe a low budget place, a film studio, and was like, damn, maybe we could save a couple bucks if we just AI this, it's not really a big part of the movie. Maybe we could do to save a couple $100,000. Sure. If you can get away with that, that's fine. I understand the viewpoint of, like you said, of, hey, this is a snowball effect because it is going to be a snowball effect. It is going to continue to happen. I think it's going to be really hard to make regulations against that in film studios because they're going to do this stuff and try to make things for cheap and to get people to buy it. I think the key really is for people to push back on that and say, no, we are not going. Yeah, they could get rid of and save a lot of money by not having these actors and not having this and these set designs by using AI. But will they be able to turn a profit if people say no and they don't go see it? But that's another discussion for another day. I don't want to get off into that tangent. I get what you're saying, but to me, the small amount of part of it, not the biggest deal, but I can see it becoming a big deal in the future.
Let's do a video talking about this because I feel like we hit something here, and I want to talk about it more.
Absolutely. So we will do something on that. All right. Late Night with the Devil. I will start since Well, I don't own the Blu-ray because it's not out,
But
but
will you?
I will. Yes, I will buy this on Blu-ray. Dude, if I can buy like anything on Blu-ray, I will. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's like
You buy Nosferatu 3 times.
I have, yes, and I'll buy the new one whenever it comes out in
Yep.
Christmas. So looking at this movie, this is a very cool concept. I had a lot of fun with it. Me anytime me and you get to go see a movie together, it's always great. I enjoyed seeing it in theaters. The concept is cool. The acting is pretty solid. Um, Jesus, stupid light. The concept is very cool. I really enjoyed the acting, the presentation style. It'd be one thing if they just said, "Oh, it's a talk show that happens in the '70s," and it doesn't really play out. No, they stick with this concept throughout the whole film, pretty much, and I got to give them props for that because that's a tough thing to do and still be entertaining. Um, there it's not really scary, but to me that's okay. I'm more along for the ride of what happens more than like, man, I can't wait to see some scary stuff because I just don't really care. The characters are good, the plot was good enough to get me invested. And it's certainly a different kind of movie, something that you don't see every day. And I think for that it warrants enough respect. I've been debating this in my head like since last night because I knew I was gonna have to grade this movie. I was really in between a C plus and a B minus. I'm gonna go B minus because I think once I watch this movie again, I'm really gonna enjoy it even more. I will buy it on Blu-ray. Um, I would say go check it out. It's in theaters now. Apparently, some people were saying it's only in select theaters. It's not everywhere accessible to everyone. So if
Hmm.
it's not in your area, I'm sorry. I think you might be able to catch it on Shutter if you have that. I could be wrong.
It is a Shutter movie, I think. I
Yeah.
saw that logo among all the others.
So it might be on there if you have that. If not, I'm sure it'll be coming to Blu-ray within a month or two. But yeah, for the most part, this was a fun, different movie. I had a good time with it. Um, I'm gonna go B minus here.
Not bad. It's for an indie-esque movie that you really took a shot on, and not much going on, and being led by an actor who's usually a supporting role at best. That's a huge gamble right there, man. And a B minus might not seem like a lot. That's a big win to me, man.
Yeah.
I think so. For at the scale you're at, so that's good. I'll do my grading, and I'm going to bring it back to my 4 golden rules of horror, man. I got to bring that back. So, like we said, I love the execution and atmosphere of this movie. Some of the best that I've seen recently. I think it really delivers on a punchy concept of 70s talk show. You had that idea, you fleshed it out, and you were so accurate. I feel like it was partly being made by someone who's worked on a show like that. That's how
Hmm.
convincing you were. I bought into it all the way, and I was interested. Um, is it scary? No, it's not scary to me, but it's very entertaining. If I could compare it to, if I could compare it to something similar, I would probably compare it to, well, obviously, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, like I mentioned, but I would compare it to the ending of Joker for a recent example with the Murray Franklin show, with the Murray
Hmm.
show.
I
Compare it to
thought about that as soon as I was like, this reminds
it,
me of that so much.
it's hard not to. It's hard not to. They're very similar time frames, aesthetics, styles. While this one obviously delivers on the concept of a talk show, I would say that maybe the lesson here is, can that sustain an hour and a half or 2 hours of plot driven filmmaking?
Hmm.
Because the Murray show in the Joker, it was a 5 minute segment, but it was gripping, man. You were glued to your seat because it was very tension building the whole time. If the Murray sequence was 2 hours long, I don't know that it would have had the same effect. So, different discussion for another day. Bottom line, I like this movie a lot. Let me give it my 4 golden rules here of horror. Golden rule number one: don't show me the monster. I never got a good look at the demon. The monster here is the demon. You could make the argument that the monster here is Jack Delroy's greed, in
Hmm.
which case you got to go look at that. But it's a demon movie. It's a demon possession movie. Late night with the devil. So Yeah, I think you just skated by succeeding with this rule. A couple good sequences of the girl doing her demon voice, obviously splitting the head and doing the magical effects. That was cool too. And then the only really kind of glimpse of the demon that you got was in the static of the TV, which was a concept delivered better in a movie called Antrim that almost nobody saw. But back to the golden rule, you didn't show me the monster. I'm in a good mood. I'll give you this one. Rule number two. Rule number two is be scary at all times, not just when the threat is on screen. First of all, you're not scary. And second of all, the threat's almost always on screen. So nah, I can't give you that one. It's a very present threat, and there was never any doubt about the threat being in the room or not. So no, I can't give you that one. Rule number three, don't rely only on jump scares. No, I don't think this movie had any jump scares. You know, it has, yeah, I mean, it wasn't scary, of course, but it had some shocking imagery, you know, namely with Gus and the practical effects and the body horror that it dived into, and even a little bit with the girl with the split head and the gore and the, you know, the stabbing and there was some good horror elements here that were not jump scares. So scary or not, I'll give you that one. That's 2 out of 4 right now. That's 2 out of 3 right now. I mean, and rule number 4, push the boundaries. I love your concept. You pitched to me found archive footage of a late night talk show that went wrong in the 70s as a horror movie. I'm in, dude. That's a brilliant concept. I can't actually think of a movie that's done that or similar. I'll have to do some research, but that's a concept I don't see a lot of. And I love found footage. I love analog VHS horror. Yeah, it's kind of cool, but I love that you're about to see never before seen footage. I love that stuff, man. I love that gimmick. I eat it up. So, but that's not a concept you push the boundaries on. Things have done that better. I'm going to give you 2 out of 4 of my golden rules. That's going to put you in the C range. I'll give you a C plus. I'm not going to take points away for the AI controversy yet, because honestly, I didn't even notice it until I read about it, but we're at a very critical point in that timeline. I'm not going to take points away from it, but I did enjoy this movie a lot. I want to see it again. I'm going to buy the Blu-ray. I can't wait to own it because this was a very entertaining picture. I wish it came out in October. I think it could have really capitalized on Halloween a little bit better, you know, sliding it in on the coattails of Dune 2 and then right underneath Godzilla versus Kong. Not the best idea, man, but you work with what you got. Maybe October was all booked up with competitors. You never know. But I'm going to buy this on Blu-ray and I'm going to watch it this October. C plus. I like this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's really in between a C plus and a B minus for me as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know, I know we've been doing a lot of older movies recently, so we wanted to go and see something new to see what we were missing. And this was certainly a fun movie. And there's a lot of good horror movies that are coming out, or a lot of new horror movies, I should say, that are going to be coming out this year. So we're definitely going to check them out as much as we can, as well as do our typical reviews. So thank you for watching. Let us know what you think about the movie in the comments below, and we will see you on the next one.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.